Was that the cause of Aoko's reasonless reaction? He seemed almost too at home in the meeting room, and she was left with the impression that it was her and the teacher, not this outsider, who were the guests here. She felt an unidentifiable aggravation building within her, almost as if her right to be here was in question.
Okay.
Aoko felt herself raising her natural defenses.
信じられない。私、今わけもなく怒ってない。
She hated not understanding things, her own emotions in particular. It pained her less than you would imagine for a perfectionist like her, but it still nagged her like a thorn in her side.
ほら、青崎くん、挨拶してあげなくちゃ。
Yeah, maybe say something. Oh.
Mr. Yamashiro's attempt to relieve the tension was equally irritating.
挨拶。
After casting a nasty glance in the teacher's direction, Aoko turned to face the boy. From an outsider's perspective, it might have looked like a stare down. And in that instant, it was.
Well.
The culmination of her emotional state hurtled toward the innocent boy and skewered him.
Oh.
いや、待たせたね、しずきくん。
Yeah, Shizuki. You're just spelling things a little odd.
Hearing his name, Sojiro came to his senses. His stunned gaze shook loose, and he took a deep breath to clear his head. Chalking it up to nerves, Mr. Yamashiro broke out a smile and turned to the girl standing beside him.
紹介するよ。彼が転入生のしずき宗十郎くん。
Shizuki Sojiro.
で、こっちの彼女がしずきくんの案内役。うちの生徒会長で休日を押して新しい仲間の案内役を買って出てくれた青崎青子くんだ。
Boy, that's a Rin pose.
Right. And a Rin scowl.
And Rin hair and eye color.
Well, kinda, yeah.
Basically, she's just Rin in her Homerahara, like,
Sort
outfit.
of.
Having been introduced by Mr. Yamashiro, the girl took a step forward. Her eyes were merciless. It's like Rin is student council president instead of VP.
Yeah, a little bit. Similar starting point, anyway.
Her stare, an unspoken threat to violently trample her opponent. Sojiro, on the other hand, managed to keep his own composure, despite the shock at how confrontational she appeared. He'd never been greeted quite like this before, but supposed, mistakenly, that this was how people treated each other in the city.
You're right, he's so naive. Oh.
The exchange must have looked quite dramatic to an onlooker. A girl ready to brawl, an earnest country boy desperate to understand. It was a murderous limbo, especially for anyone in the room with them, like Suzuki.
Oh no, and the teacher with them.
Yamashiro, sorry, yes.
Yeah, Yamashiro was like, "Oh my god, I hope I hope she doesn't throw hands. Please don't start a fight."
Like Mr. Yamashiro.
Yep.
While he thought he made the right decision in choosing an honor student to help him out, she was in an inexplicably bad mood, and the tension in the air was undeniable.
Oh wow, she's highlighted in red.
It was this moment that he realized his failure.
Oh jeez.
His realization had come far too late. It was at that time he knew.
He'd
fucked up.
Yeah.
One false move, and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, becoming
a storm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
One false move, and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, would becoming a storm that would rock the very foundations of the school.
I would go with become.
I think is what you wanted there. Good old Type Moon translations. Even when they're official, they're scuff.
Well.
Just as the almighty Joker card could bring either fortune or disaster, the sole teacher who had been present at the time would come to bear the blame for the scandal that ensued.
Oh, yeah. If anything happens, he's responsible.
二人とも気は合うよう
Wow,
だね
you two are getting along so great.
それじゃあ僕はこの
Well,
辺
I
で
guess I can go, can't I?
Yeah.
Mr. Yamashiro laughed nervously as he crept towards the door.
Yeah, he's trying to
僕
leave.
は職員室にいるから終わったら来るように
Anyway, have fun. Try not to kill each other. Bye.
青崎
Wow.
くれぐれもくれぐれもだぜ
Seriously, Aoko, you're gonna be okay.
な
Oh,
んていうか生徒会長としての度量の
that's
広
nice
さを
effect moving her eyes like
僕
that.
に信じさせてほしいかな
Please remember you're the student council president.
Mr. Yamashiro left, leaving the two in a locked eye state, one in which one set of eyes was doing all the glaring. Well, that's not very nice of you, Sojiro. All that remained in the room was a naive boy and a cross-armed guarded girl. The two lingered in silence. They resembled shogi players, agonizing over their first moves, though ultimately it was only Aoko that had considered the scene that carefully.
Yeah, he's kind of just going with the flow and staying quiet.
I guess she does kind of look like Hifumi.
A little
She's
bit.
sort of a shogi player. She decided to put her irritation aside for the time being. With no reason to feel revulsion for him in the first place, she sighed deeply and faced Sojiro.
まあいいわ。山城先生がヒルアンドンなのは今に始まったことじゃないし。
Well, whatever.
あなた名前は？
Anyway, I wasn't listening when that jackass was talking. What was your name? Her tone was nothing if not reproachful, though he had done nothing to offend her. But the boy failed to pick up on it. Incapable of such venom himself.
ああ、静木宗十郎かな。君は青崎さんだったね。
For whatever reason, he came across as happy in his response, which just made her more
バラじゃない
annoyed.
から。
Seriously, drop the san.
こっちは静木くんでいい？
And also, I'm not using honorifics with you. Get over it.
いいって何が？
だから呼び方。
Oh.
くんづけでいいかって
What
聞
do
い
you
てる。
mean, what do I mean? You speak Japanese, don't you?
何よ？おかしなこと言った？私。
いや、すごく。
The boy replied immediately, as if it was a natural response, but quickly second-guessed himself.
いや、いいんだ。ごく一般的なんだろう。静木くんで頼む。君は青崎でいいんだよな。
Well, she already told you to drop the honorific, so...
I think he's asking just to be polite.
よろしく。
Great, I'm gonna call you Aoko then.
Yeah, Yoroshiku, that's like the... Well, it's kind of like a greeting, I think.
Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
But just Yoroshiku. Eh.
Yeah. She followed her blunt reply with a swift turn away from him. While she was hardly thrilled at the prospect of the task at hand, it had been entrusted to her, and it was her personal policy to see it through to the end.
悪いけど、優しくしてあげる気はないから。時間も惜しいし、手早く行くわよ。
それは助かる。やっぱり時間は大切だ。
Yes, I have something very important to get back to at home.
Right.
Aoko's blunt rancor was lost on him once again. This guy is not taking the hint.
Yeah.
Humans tend to be overly conscious about being ignored, whatever form that takes. But despite being peeved at landing none of her attacks, Aoko did her best to act professional and directed her guest into the hallway.
Wow, that's professional.
It said did her best, not succeeded. There was no sunlight in the hallway, nor any sign of life. This was more like a prison than the cave that was the meeting room. As it dawned on Aoko that the hallway matched her mood, she sighed once again.
まず聞いておくけど、山城先生から聞いたことは理解してる？
No.
ああ、学校の仕組みについては分かる。
Do you?
この建物全部に同い年の人間がいるなんてちょっと想像できないけど。
Oh, really? That's the thing throwing you off?
Well, if any form of school existed in this
Mountain
podunk
village.
mountain village, it was probably like a one-room building where all ages
Different
were
ages.
together, you know?
Yeah.
そうよかったわね。
Aoko rubbed her forehead. This Sojiro kid had no idea what he was in for. Apparently, all he'd heard about school was that it was a place where a lot of people met to study.
That's a good start, I guess.
High school teachers imparted to students their knowledge in various fields of study while fostering discipline and creativity. But never did Aoko imagine that she would have to explain the concept of school itself to someone. Yeah, fundamentals were important, but this was absurd.
He's starting from such a low point of understanding, I guess.
She had serious doubts whether he could even handle classes, but Mr. Yamashiro insisted that things would work out somehow. Sojiro had managed to pass the transfer exam after all. Barely.
Wow.
私には関係ないけど。
Not my monkeys, not my circus.
That is the look of giving up right there.
Aoko grumbled mentally as she walked down the hallway. She consoled herself with the fact that today would be the only day she'd spend with this boy out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least she'd try to keep it that way.
青崎、
He asked, calmly trying to get her attention.
何？
こっちも一つ聞いていいかな。
You just did. Moving on.
だから何？
俺
Again,
の気の
what
せ
is
い
it?
だと思うんだが、君はまるで何かを睨んでいるように見え
Yes, very. Thanks for noticing.
る。やはり今朝は悪いものでも。
Oh, wow. You went right to that, huh?
His gaze revealed earnest concern, as if asking her if she'd remembered to eat breakfast.
Oh!
It was like another hammer to her head.
She did not take that well. Oh, God.
It was true that Aoko had been glaring at Sojiro the entire time. Glaring red-hot daggers, in fact. Not just at him, but the universe. Even on her best days, her roommate used to remark.
青子の視線は普通の人には厳しいわ。
See, now that looks more like Aoko with the wrong color hair.
Hmm.
もう少し多くのことに寛大になるべきね。
She'd been warned that her emotions were so naked on her face that people treated her like a powder keg. How naive could the boy be that he couldn't pick up on this?
私をバカにしてるってわけじゃなさそうよね。この場合。
No, it just makes it worse. He's actually sincere.
Even she found her own attempt to reassure herself unconvincing. It began to dawn on Aoko far too late that compared to her, this laid-back transfer student might as well have been from another planet.
いいわ。言葉にしないとわからないようだから言うけど、まるでじゃなくてズバリそうなの。あなたの気のせいじゃなくて、私は視線で遠回しに感情を表現してたの。いちいち声に出すのも会話にするのも面倒だから。
Being mad all the time is easier than talking to people.
Well,
In response to her words, the Martian clapped his hands together.
なるほど。どうしてそうしたいのかはわからないが、確かにそっちの方が手っ取り早い意思表現だ。
okay. You lived with other people in this mountain village, right? I'm starting to question that.
I was raised by wolves.
Yeah. Was it a village of animals?
Sojiro accepted her reasoning without argument, though he still had no idea what kinds of emotions she was trying to express. It was as if he could hear the words but didn't grasp the meaning. Ideas that should have connected were instead separated into blocks.
確かにずれてるわ、こいつ。
Mr. Yamashiro's words made sense to her now.
Yeah, nice kid, but
What was odd about this boy went way beyond naivety.
yeah, it's like he doesn't understand people.
A stranger in a strange land he may be, but it was only civilized to forgive him some jet lag-induced confusion.
じゃ、とりあえずあなたの教室に行くから。
She'd regained her composure. Sojiro raised his hand and stopped in his tracks.
あと一つ。
Aoko waited for Sojiro to continue. The boy was patient to a fault. She rubbed her forehead with her hand again, nursing a vague feeling of uneasiness.
これもちょっとした疑問なんだが、なんで君は怒ってるんだ？怒るのが商売とか、そういう家柄の人なのか？
What? Is being angry a profession, or perhaps a genetic trait?
A long silence. Though she knew it wouldn't change the situation, she remembered her regret at answering the phone that morning. He meant no harm. She repeated this thought like a mantra in an attempt to keep her impulses in check.
別にあなたのせいじゃないから気にする必要はないわ。ただ、この一瞬とお昼まで眠っていた場合を計りにかけたら、あまりに利益の違いがあって頭を抱えただけよ。
With that vague answer, she started to walk again. Aozaki, where would that be? And turned her gaze away from this rude stranger named Sojiro Shizuki. Wow. Shizuki is how they're pronouncing it.
Yeah.
So. While what constitutes normal is certainly up for debate, most would undoubtedly refer to him as so. He was a simple and nice boy with nondescript features. If he were an ice cream flavor, he would be vanilla.
Wow. That's pretty direct.
And Sojiro found Aoko to be very businesslike and full of life. There was a certain purpose to her movements, as they began and ended in an orderly fashion. The way her finger raised when she pointed at things, the way she made her way across the hallways and classrooms, the way she would occasionally glance back at him to make sure he was keeping pace. Her waist, her boobs, and her...
Thighs?
crotch? I'm not sure what's the focus of that third one, but this man seems to just be checking her out.
Could be.
Each and every movement was so impressive that he couldn't take his eyes off of her. Aoko showed him to his homeroom, Class C of the 11th grade. 2C, understood. Please do not try to translate Japanese grades.
Yeah,
into...
right. Took me a second.
He's in 2C.
Right, yeah.
Like,
there's only 3 years in
there's only
Japanese
3
high
years,
school.
yeah.
So he's a second year. So he would be in the same class as like Joker and company.
Yes. Which puts so last year of middle school is third year middle school, which is 15.
Yeah.
So you start
16, 17, 18
high school,
high school
at 16. Yep. So he's
17
they are
like her.
approximately 17-ish.
Right.